My name is Terri Febo Robinson, and I'm Director of Brand Advancement and Content Strategy at Hebrew SeniorLife, and we are a nonprofit provider of senior healthcare, housing, and research, and we're affiliated with Harvard Medical School. We serve about 3,000 seniors a day, everybody from independent and active seniors to very frail seniors who need a lot of support in their daily living. We have about 2,600 employees on 6 campuses in the greater Boston area. I lead a team of 5 people, and we create and execute content that helps Hebrew SeniorLife advance its business and mission-based goals. And everything that we do is tied to a set of marketing goals. I work very closely with our marketing team, and we produce everything from blogs to videos to email newsletters to print pieces. So on a daily basis, what my day might look like is I might start by leading a meeting of our editorial board, which is about 13 people in our communications and marketing teams. And we meet weekly to make sure that we are all aligned in the content that we're creating and the message that we're sharing and the story that we're telling. I might review and edit a blog post. I might talk to some of our freelancers and vendors. So for example, freelance writer on project they're working on, our video team about some video content that we might be working on. I might have a call with our digital agency to talk about our website and to look at how it's performing and the analytics behind it, and talk about our strategy for making sure that we are being found by search engines. And of course, throughout the day, I'm checking in with my team to make sure that they have the support they need to get their jobs done. There are a lot of entry-level jobs available in communications or public relations or content marketing. A lot of people might choose to join an agency right after college. I didn't do that, but I did as my second job. And it's a really great way to get a lot of experience very quickly and be exposed to a lot of different types of clients and types of work. But regardless of where you're working, an entry-level job will probably involve a lot of background research so that the team has the information they need to be creating content, whether that's a press release or a blog post or a video, any other type of content. You'll probably be doing a lot of writing, blog posts, social media posts, email newsletters, any other type of content, press releases. You might be doing some light design work or video production. And let's be honest, you're probably going to be doing some administrative tasks like scheduling meetings and keeping the team organized, especially if you're working on a larger team. Try not to get discouraged by those tasks, and just think about it as a way to get exposed to a lot of different areas of the team's work. My undergraduate major at BU definitely prepared me for the career that I'm in today. I was a communications major with a concentration in public relations, and the tactics have changed a lot in the 20 years since I graduated from BU, but the foundation is really the same. I really learned through my coursework how to succinctly and effectively communicate to a variety of different audiences, and how to tailor my message based on who I was talking to and what kind of vehicle I was communicating through. So while the work may have changed in the last 20 years, the principles that I learned at BU are definitely the same. I think I always intended to have a career in nonprofits, but I didn't really picture exactly how my career would end up going. My first jobs were in PR and communications, and then in my late 20s, I took a job at Planned Parenthood as a grant writer. And the skills that I gained earlier in my career really helped in that job from the standpoint of how to write and communicate effectively and persuasively. After that job, I went to a role in donor communications, specifically communicating with donors about how their philanthropy is having an impact on the mission. And that's where I spent about the next 10 years focusing before broadening back to where I am today, which is in communications and content strategy. And I think the common thread throughout my career has been to find a mission that I really care about and use my skills as a communicator to engage our key stakeholders in that mission, whether it is, board members or staff or seniors or, people who are looking for resources to help with their families as they navigate the aging process. COVID-19 has had a dramatic impact on the way that I work and the way that our team works. I work in senior care and healthcare, and those are two industries that have been hugely affected by this work. Around the end of February, we really started ramping up our communications around this, and we quickly went into a crisis communications mode that we stayed in for several months. Our organization has absolutely been impacted by this pandemic. We are a leader in the field, and many others look to us for what we do so that they can learn from us. And we were also affected by infections and deaths across our communities. So very quickly, the communications team had to completely shift our priorities and focus exclusively on managing this crisis. And from the beginning, we were very committed to open and transparent communications with our patients and residents and their families and employees and our donors and all of our stakeholders. So every day we would have a phone call every morning to check in on our priorities, see where the hot spots were today. What are we all doing? How can we help each other? Making sure that we're not tripping over each other and creating chaos as we navigate through this crisis. We all kind of chipped in different areas that we don't typically work in. So I don't typically do internal communications in my day-to-day job, but for about 2 months I took over our internal newsletter, which typically goes out every other week, but during the height of the crisis we were doing it twice a week to make sure that our employees knew everything that was happening and had the tools they needed to do their jobs. It was a really difficult time personally and professionally. I've worked in crisis communications before, but never an experience that was also impacting me personally at the same time. And of course, at the same time that all of this was going on, we were all navigating working remotely as an entire team for the first time and figuring out what that meant for our day-to-day work. As I sat at my dining room table and, as I would get inundated by emails or get stressed out about a letter that I had to rewrite because as soon as I finished it, the message had changed, I thought a lot about my colleagues who are frontline workers and essential workers, and they were literally risking their lives to take care of our patients and residents, and I never forgot about that. The immediate phase of the crisis, fortunately passed as the cases in the Northeast went down over the spring. And then we kind of found ourselves in a second phase of the crisis, which was really a financial one. And like any healthcare or senior care organization, we were impacted financially by this as well. During the height of the crisis, we made decisions based on what was best for our patients and residents and employees and what would keep them safe without any thought about what the financial impact was. And we also had to close some of our businesses because we couldn't operate during the pandemic. And these were all the right things to do, but we had to then take a look at what the financial impact was and how we could address that. And we're a strong organization, we're not going anywhere, but it just takes a little bit of time to come back from that experience. So the communications team has really shifted to helping to change the narrative about senior care. There were a lot of really scary headlines in the news this year about senior care and about nursing homes, and consumers don't necessarily know the difference between a nursing home and an independent living setting and what that means. And we really believe that a high quality senior care organization like ours can still be a really good choice for families and for people who need support during the aging process. So the past several months, we've really been working hard as a communications team, and particularly as a content team, to create content that helps to counter that narrative and shows people the experiences of people in our communities during this pandemic, and how safe and secure they feel. At the same time, we're also preparing in case there is another surge this fall and winter, and we will be ready to do whatever we need to get through that and to keep our patients and residents and their families safe and fully informed as we continue to emphasize transparency in all of our communications. The most influential course I took at BU was probably the PR for Nonprofits class that I took, because we had a lot of guest speakers who worked in different areas of communications, in nonprofits, in agencies, in government, and it was really helpful to see people, who were out working in their full-time jobs and in their careers, and hear about their experiences and get an idea of what some different career paths for me might be. I also was really influenced by Professor Toby Berkovitz and his class that I took, and really helping to show me how to be a persuasive communicator. While I was at BU, the resource that I definitely took advantage of the most was internships. I did 3 internships while I was at BU, and they really helped to crystallize what my career path might be, and showed me that I really wanted to be working in a mission-based organization. There was one summer in particular where I had 2 internships, and one of them was for somebody who was running a small PR agency out of his house, focused mostly on consumer brands. And at the same time, I was doing an internship at AIDS Action Committee in Boston, and I was working with their events team to help plan their art auction, which they had every other year to raise money for their mission. And having these 2 experiences at the same time really showed me that I needed to really care about what I was communicating about. At the PR agency, I was faxing out a lot of press releases about new consumer products, and yes, we did fax in those days. And, of course, that's important work for the business, but I just didn't feel as personally connected to it. While at the same time, I was at AIDS Action Committee, and I was, really seeing where my work could impact the organization and impact the lives of people who really depended on the work of the organization. So that experience really showed me that, while it wasn't necessarily that I work in a nonprofit organization, I really needed to work in an organization with a strong mission, and a way to show me that I could have a real impact. If I could speak to a student right now who's considering a job in communications, first of all, I would say definitely consider nonprofits as a career path. There are a lot of really great opportunities. Everything from very small grassroots nonprofits to very large nonprofits like the one I work at now, where I have a real team around me. I would say do internships, do as many as you can. Don't drive yourself crazy, but maybe take a risk and take an internship in an area that you hadn't really considered before, or you're not sure about. You might find out that you either love it or hate it, and either way, that'll really help you identify a career path moving forward. I would say get involved in industry groups in something like PR. PRSSA is a really great way to meet other students working in your industry and meet professionals who are out in their own careers. And I would also say get involved in your community and volunteer. It's a great thing to put on your resume, and it's also a great way to network and meet people and explore different career paths. You could volunteer in an area that is connected to your area of study, or not, just something that you're passionate about. But it's not only great to help you feel like you're connected to the community, but can really help you in your career moving forward as well. Even if you're not considering a career in nonprofits, it's a great way to get out there in the community. My first job out of college was as PR and marketing associate at the Wang Center for the Performing Arts in Boston, which is now called the Bach Center, and it's a nonprofit performing arts organization. So for a former theater nerd, this was a really great job for me coming out of college. I got involved in a lot of different areas of PR and marketing and communications while I was in that job. It was a smaller organization, so I got exposure to a lot of different things, including media relations and working with our education department and working with our development department on fundraising events and our ad agencies and our PR agencies, and learning about event marketing and grassroots marketing. It was a really great way to get exposure to a lot of different parts of the communications and marketing field. What has surprised me most about the industry I work in now is just how complex it is. I work for Hebrew SeniorLife, and we are at the intersection of the senior care and healthcare industries, and both of these industries are highly regulated, and we have a lot of different businesses within the organization, and it can get really complex. And my job as a communicator is to understand those different regulations and the different ways that our businesses are licensed, so then I can communicate effectively. I have to figure out the best way to communicate about our work in a way that both satisfies our regulators and is correct and accurate, but speaks to consumers in the way that they think about senior care and the way that they think about healthcare and the way that they're looking for our services. And sometimes those two things don't always match up very neatly. So our job is to figure out the best way to communicate with those consumers while still being correct about the services that we provide.